I like the premise of that show. I personally, and I'm like the target audience to a certain extent. You take a premise where you've got kind of a little nerdy dustbin, a bit of history, political. I don't know if it's an actual rule, but the thing where some lower level cabinet officer in the States doesn't go over to hear the State of the Union in case everybody in that building gets killed for some reason. So you have somebody in the actual presidential line of succession who can take over, and having that become sort of the driving force for the beginning of a show, like that is right up my alley. But like, I don't know, nothing, it never really hooked me. Maybe it's just like I never watched 24, so like Kiefer isn't a huge draw to me, and maybe I just didn't buy him as a politician. I don't really want to get into sort of the weeds of why I didn't watch a particular show, but that's one that has not been renewed. There's a couple of other shows, like, I mean, Scandal sort of came to its natural conclusion. I think Shonda Rhimes just basically said, like, all right, I'm done. I told the story that I wanted to tell here, made the West Wing references that I wanted to make. I killed Will Bailey. There's a spoiler for you. So that's, it's kind of sad to see that go. But like the thing that upset me more than anything else is that Fox done foxed it up again. They have this tendency at Fox, and I don't know what it is in terms of their creative decision makers. You can say what you want about Fox News, but generally speaking, Fox, the channel, has a pretty good idea of how to pick decent shows, or at least shows that have good people behind them and the potential to be good, to run on their station. I mean, this is of course the channel that gave us The Simpsons, and it gave us, for better or worse, over the years, gave us Family Guy. Family Guy's first few seasons were pretty damn good. It's pretty good damn television. Doesn't hold up as great, but at the time, those were the shows. Family Guy in particular, when I was in high school, was the show. Like it was like water cooler talk. It was like that thing that they wanted to really instill in folks. We Monday morning we were just like literally just like doing bits from the show back and forth and laughing about whatever had gone on that week. It was all that we talked about back when I was in high school. Again, I think like it's not the same show for me anymore. It's not my type of humor anymore. But this is a channel, Fox, that has produced a lot of really great television over the years. But they've also had this tendency to take on projects that are really, really beautifully made and really, really well thought out pieces, and just absolutely critically acclaimed and absolutely loved, that they end up pulling the plug on just far too soon. I mean, if you need a classic example, you can of course point to one of either Firefly, which only got one season and is just one of those shows that is a beautiful cult following ever since. To a certain extent, I think you can kind of blame that on its own time. That show came out before there was any real online sort of streaming service. It was a 2002-2003 release. DVD sales were, of course, becoming a thing, but like that wasn't really enough to save a show back in the day. Nielsen ratings did mean a lick, so I think that was to a certain extent what caused a show like Firefly problems. Also, of course, Arrested Development, 3 seasons, won all these fucking Emmys. Cleaned up year after year in terms of their Emmy nominations and wins. But yet they weren't able to get the Fox. The Fox marketing machine behind that kind of show, and it eventually failed. And of course, this week it kind of looked like Brooklyn Nine-Nine was going to be the latest victim of the Fox chopping block in a way. So here's the thing that absolutely breaks my brain. I don't know why this show, which is an NBC property to begin with, by the way, like it's owned by NBC Universal, which makes sense because like it's produced by Lorne Michaels and it stars, of course, Andy Samberg. Obviously, a lot of carryover from their times at SNL together. which is an NBC show in and of itself. So I don't know why this show didn't end up on NBC to begin with. I think it would have had a better chance at being successful on NBC. But it's not really the point that I'm trying to make here. Fox was after 5 seasons about to pull the plug. I mean, I suppose they have in a way pulled the plug on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and social media, Twitter in particular, blew the hell up over this. As you know, like I'm a big fan, and this is probably the show that I would say I'm most likely to watch that's currently on television. I don't really even know what's on television, to be honest with you, on any given week. That's why it's this week's discussion topic. What show is on TV that I need to be watching that's being produced right now? Brooklyn Nine-Nine is that show for me. I absolutely love it. It's one of those shows for me. I absolutely dig. I think that the characters, I've said it on the show before, I think the characters are well representative of the city that they are representing. I think that what I love about it is it kind of follows the same sort of it has the same sort of dynamic as like Parks and Rec did, of like, these are people who care about each other, and there may be moments where Charles is kind of making everybody sort of roll their eyes, but at the end of the day, Charles and Jake are actually really good friends, even though Jake's like a slightly younger seeming. I think they're probably around the same age in reality, but he's like kind of a younger dude. Who's a little bit more plugged in, a little bit more socially aware than Charles is, but they are genuinely good friends. You have representation of different races. You have representation of different sexual orientations, and it's not done in sort of a ham-fisted token sort of way. It's just like, this is the way that the world is, and we're going to try and represent that on our television. Just anyhow, one of the shows I absolutely love more than anything else, and of course Fox said that they weren't going to order a new season, which drove everybody to Twitter. Renew 9-9 was trending for days, and it looked pretty bleak there for a few days. Of course, immediately the first step is towards trying to get they're trying to get a Hulu or a Netflix to jump on. Honestly, I personally think that this would be a perfect property for Netflix. I believe I read somewhere that it's actually the second most streamed television show that's in current production on Hulu. So it's certainly doing pretty well for itself. Second might actually be high. It was top 5. I'm pretty sure it was top 5. So it was certainly doing pretty well for itself on the streaming platforms, which is kind of brings me to my point here. Who the fuck actually cares about Nielsen ratings anymore? Nobody watches TV live anymore. If we're going based on Nielsen ratings, like Nielsen has always been a ridiculous like rounding error of a way to try and dictate what the viewership is of a particular audience. You have the Nielsen boxes. That's a subset of the population that's going to actually have a Nielsen box. The parts of it that's not actually done through the Nielsen box is done through a voluntary survey, which there's no way of backing any of that data up. So it always kind of broke my brain that Nielsen ratings were a thing in 2018 as it is now, but even 2 or 3 years ago, like 2015 was the first point where I was just like, you know what? Most people are watching their television online, or they're watching it certainly at the very least PVR'd. You know what I mean? Like TiVo'd, if you will. Like it's not a situation where like even my parents are not likely to watch. They don't watch the news live, for crying out loud. They will wait for a couple of hours so they can fast forward through the commercials, or fast forward through the inane bullshit at the end of the show, which drives me up the absolute wall. So it looked like for a minute that it may find a home on Hulu, and then Hulu turned it down. Looked like it was going to go to Netflix. Netflix turned it down. It was sort of down to the hope that somewhere like TBS might give it another shot, another chance at life. But quite luckily, NBC, who again owns the property to begin with, but whatever. NBC is going to carry the show from season 6 onward, which means we're going to see more of these characters that I absolutely love. It's kind of a shame in a way that this information came out. Like, I'm glad that the show is not going to be canceled. That we're going to get another season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, at least another one. It's a little bit of a shame that that information came out before I started to sit down to record this podcast, because I had another like conspiracy theory idea that I don't actually believe, that I kind of wanted to share on the show, but I'm not gonna now, because it's just like, it just sort of seems kind of seems moot at this point. So I don't know. Good news about Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Other interesting good news that hit this week. As you may know about me, I'm a big fan of the Vlogbrothers, John and Hank Green. They are sort of YouTube personalities, I should say, that have been doing this for they're into their like 11th year, I believe, of doing a weekly show where they go back and forth and have a conversation between brothers. Of course, John is also well known as being an author, and many years ago, his first novel, Looking for Alaska, he sold the rights to it. Of course, he's also the author of countless other books. Not countless. There's a set number of them. John, get your shit together here. You're hosting a podcast. Actually, fucking host it. He's the author of The Fault in Our Stars and also Paper Towns, which both became big-time blockbuster films, both of which I saw in theaters and enjoyed, even though I was definitely the only dude who was there of his own volition, which was just funny. I actually went to go see... Because so The Fault in Our Stars came out first, and it was a big New York Times bestseller and all this sort of stuff. There's a lot of buzz for the show, for the movie. I went to go see it on like a Saturday afternoon by myself. I was kind of hungover. I'd gone out to karaoke the night before, and I went and it was a Saturday matinee. There were not a lot of folks that were there, and it was like maybe it was one of those things where I had a row to myself, but I could definitely see some of the little teeny bopper couples sort of in front of me, where the guys were just not interested in being there at all. Anyhow, enjoyed that film a whole lot. We found out this week that Looking for Alaska, John Green's first novel, is not going to be a movie. It's going to be a limited run series. So it's going to be a mini series released on Hulu. Of course, I don't know what that means in terms of me here in Canada, when I'm going to get to see it on what platform. But hopefully it does make its way to a platform that I can watch it on sooner rather than later. Because I'm looking forward to reading that book. If you haven't read any of the John Green novels, I think that he does a really great job of capturing the mindset of people who are in young people, which is ultimately just a person who's in transition in terms of life events, which I think is one of those things. Like I still like reading a lot of young adult literature, even though I'm definitely starting to age out of being a young adult myself. The reason I like reading it is that I think that when it's done well, it speaks certainly very well to its intended audience, the young adult milieu or whatever. Milieu is not a good word there. The young adult audience, we'll go with that. Speaks well to the young adult audience, but it also will speak better to even older audiences as well, because I can both look at it as a hey, I was actually in that person's shoes at one time, and that really does ring true for me in hindsight. But it also allows you to sort of remember that we're all on a journey where we're all changing, and things are always changing for folks. That's kind of what life is change. I don't know. That was kind of profound. I got past the sad, bleak existential dread that I had at the beginning of the episode, and got into something a little bit happier. That things are changing, and it's about how we change that defines who we are. Or something. I don't know. That kind of got away from me, as has this segment, because we're rounding the bend on this segment, and we'll go next into race relations on Ivy League campuses. Yay! Should be really, really light, guys. It's all going to be okay.